It shouldn't matter really whether it's Nigel Farage or whether it's Gina Miller who is being debanked. As Gina Miller has pointed out today, we don't have a functioning democracy if new political parties cannot access banking services. After she was told that her own party's account would be closed because it was opened before she revealed that it was a political party or something. I don't quite know the ins and outs of it, but it doesn't really matter. The problem is the banks are making decisions about people's opinions, and that's not the bank's job. Miller says that it was a bigger issue than the closure of Nigel Farage's bank account, and that's exactly the point. Nigel Farage is a catalyst for change in this particular issue. I'm sorry that it's Nigel Farage who is the person who has risen to the top of the pile. There was Lawrence Fox. He made a fuss, but he wasn't a big enough character to draw the attention of the government and Jeremy Hunt. Farage was. Farage is a thorn in their side. And of course, we've now got a situation where people are desperately keen not to give Farage a political platform because of this. I'm afraid I'm inclined to agree with them. But the position which Rachel Reeves and one or two other people on the left are taking is wrong. They're assuming that it's wrong to criticize Coates. It's not wrong to criticize Coates. We should all be out there and marching against Coates. Coates takes 36%. 36% of the Coates shares are held by the government. They're our shares. So it's a public company. It doesn't have a right to make a private decision about who it lets in and who it doesn't let into its shop. If you've taken on a customer, it's not right to suddenly decide, oh, we've reviewed your situation and now we don't think we want you. Having made a decision, we should stick to it. There's a very interesting religious angle to this, by the way. St. Paul in the New Testament talks about becoming adopted children of Christ or adopted children of God in baptism. And he's using a very interesting formula in Roman law. And I think some of this should be adopted into British law. So the idea was that if you have a natural child, a father can in fact disown that child. The pater familias, the absolute rule of the parent, which is pretty abhorrent. He had the rule of life and death over his family. But if that child is an adopted child, it is impossible to de-adopt them. And that is why Paul uses the concept of adopted children. And as an adopted child myself, I was pretty appalled when I was when I was told I was no longer my father's child. I thought that was an appalling thing to do, as he was beating me up. I suppose I don't know whether the beating up or the being de-adopted was the more horrific. But I've had an experience of that and feeling that I was no longer wanted. That should never happen. It shouldn't happen to a natural child. It certainly shouldn't happen to a child whose parents have made the decision to take him on. And I think the same thing by extension applies to banks and to telephone companies. If a bank takes a decision to take somebody on, I don't think it's up to them to review the original decision. If the customer starts doing something new, then maybe there's a small window of opportunity for the bank to say, well, you're doing something new and I don't think we should support that. We supported the original application. We don't support you in this new image. But it's very, very difficult territory. And Farage is right. The bank supported him when he didn't have enough money, when he wasn't meeting that financial threshold. But it wasn't that got him debanked. It was his reputation, which the 40-page document seems to have been made up from Google tittle tattle. Gina Miller, I think, is in a similar situation with Monzo. Monzo has taken a decision based on reviewing their original decision. That I think is not their right. And she had great difficulty trying to find a bank that would take on a political party, the true and fair party. Lawrence Fox had the same problem. It's unacceptable. If we can't find a bank who's going to take on a new and emerging political party, we can't have new and emerging political parties. We can't have a functioning democracy. And the government and the Financial Conduct Authority have got to step in and sort this out, as she says. If she loses her account in Monzo in September, and another bank provider decides they've got the same rule, oh, we don't accept political parties, then in effect, she and her party and her movement no longer exist. We wouldn't be able to operate, she says, because we wouldn't have any access to the banking services. It doesn't matter whether it's Gina Miller speaking or Farage speaking. This isn't about supporting Farage. In fact, it isn't about supporting Gina Miller. It's about supporting the idea of free speech, of political assembly, of having your voice heard, and having the financial support to make this into a system in the 21st century. We can't function, really, as an organization without a bank account. Every time we look around, we're asked for our bank details and for our credit card details, and nobody will take cash. If nobody will take cash, and if you're not allowed a bank account, you are a non-person or a non-organization. That is completely unacceptable. That is what the Farage situation establishes. And the idea that people are saying, the nitpicking, is, oh, Farage was offered another bank account. He was not! Until much later in the story. Look at the chronology. And that is to take an ad hominem view of the issues. The view of the issues are clear. The banks are out of control. The banks are behaving in a dysfunctional and autocratic way. And the true and fair party is supposed to be standing 9 candidates at the next general election. And I think it's an interesting party. I wish I'd get in touch with me. But Monzo has said, like lots of banks, we do not accept any political parties as Monzo business customers in the same way that we don't currently accept trusts, clubs, and a range of other organizations. In this case, the account wasn't originally categorized as a political party. It shouldn't make any difference. A bank is a bank, and this sort of nitpicking is a waste of time. And we need to get to a position where banks are no longer being so tyrannical. And Monzo is saying that it's got nothing to do with Miller's political views. No. Just as Coates would say it's got nothing to do with Farage's political views. Well, let's see the paperwork.